Hi there. Welcome to the 10-Minute Analyst, where we turn complex institutional research into intelligence you can actually use.
Every week, we dissect the latest reports from banks, summarizing the charts, the data, and the bottom line into a concise podcast and visual deck.
It's open source intelligence for the modern professional. Now let's dive in.
Imagine firing your entire external software development team, your marketing agency, and your research analysts, and then replacing all of them with just a single group chat on your phone.
Which, it sounds entirely like science fiction.
Right. It
Yeah.
completely does. But right now, local governments in China are literally handing out cash subsidies to individuals who are doing exactly this.
Yeah, it's wild. They're funding the creation of what they call one-person companies.
Exactly. And it's completely upending how we think about productivity. So welcome, everyone. Today, our mission on this deep dive is to extract the most disruptive insights from a newly released March 2026 Morgan Stanley Research Report.
Right. The one titled China Internet Asia Pacific, OpenClaw in China.
That's the one. And the premise we're unpacking today revolves around a piece of open source software that has hit the market with a velocity that, honestly, traditional financial models are genuinely struggling to map out.
Yeah, we are talking about a fundamental shift in how human beings interface with artificial intelligence. Moving from these clunky web browsers directly into the messaging apps we use every single day.
And the numbers backing this up are just staggering. We're looking at a completely free tool that hit 300,000 stars on GitHub faster than anything in the platform's history.
Which is just unprecedented.
Yeah.
And it's sending very specific AI stock charts absolutely vertical.
Oh, totally vertical. So listen, whether you're a tech enthusiast building apps or an investor trying to read the tea leaves on where the next $1 trillion is flowing, or just someone trying to streamline your own daily workflow, stick with us.
Because our goal today is to really separate the real investable ecosystem shifts from just the temporary hype.
Right, and that distinction is so critical. The speed of this trend is breathtaking, but we need to look past the sheer velocity and understand the mechanics here.
Exactly. We need to dissect exactly why an experimental framework is commanding this much global capital and, frankly, strategic maneuvering from some of the biggest tech giants on Earth.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Before we get into the wild economic ripple effects over in the Chinese tech market, we really need to establish what this record-breaking software actually is.
Yeah, the origin story itself is pretty fascinating.
It really is. So this entirely disruptive tool was created by a single developer, Peter Steinberger.
Yeah.
And he originally launched it back in November 2025 under the name Clawbot.
Right. And initially, it was just another interesting side project in a sea of AI tools.
Yes, one of many, yeah.
But then, starting in late January 2026, it found its exact product market fit. It rebranded to OpenClaw, and the global traction just became historic.
Historic is honestly the only right word for it. It saw the fastest star growth in the entire history of GitHub.
Which, for anyone listening who might not spend their days deep in developer forums, a star on GitHub is not like a like on social media.
No, not at all.
It is essentially the ultimate nod of approval from other software engineers. It basically means this codebase is incredibly useful, and I'm bookmarking this to build my own products on top of it.
Right. And on its launch day, it got 9,000 stars, which is already great. But then, within 72 hours, it hit 60,000.
Just massive acceleration.
Yeah, and today it's sitting at over 300,000 stars.
Yeah.
So what exactly are all these developers downloading? Well, OpenClaw is defined as a free, open-source AI agent framework that runs locally on your computer.
Right, and it uses external large language models, the LLMs,
Right.
To execute tasks through standard messaging apps.
Which is, that's a pretty dense technical definition.
It is, yeah. But if we break down how it actually operates mechanically, the appeal becomes really obvious.
Yeah, let me try to visualize the mechanics here for you. Think of OpenClaw like an invisible air traffic controller for your daily tasks.
I like that analogy.
Right. Because before this, if you wanted to use AI, you were constantly switching contexts. You'd log into one site to generate an image, then open a different app to analyze a spreadsheet, and maybe use a third subscription just to write some code.
You're doing all the heavy lifting.
Exactly. You are the one moving the data around. But with OpenClaw, the software lives directly on your own hard drive. You just open up WeChat or whatever messaging app you already use, and you text this AI agent like it's a coworker.
Yeah, you just type, analyze this PDF of last quarter's sales and email the summary to the marketing team.
And here is where that air traffic controller mechanism kicks in. When you send that text, OpenClaw acts as this translation and routing layer. It takes your natural language text, parses out your actual intent, and then breaks it down into subtasks.
Right. It then pings the APIs, the application programming interfaces of whatever external AI models you have connected to it. It routes the data, gets the analysis back, reformats it into a human-readable message, and just texts you back the result.
But wait, I mean, we've seen AI agents that can do tasks before. Why did a free open source project from one guy beat out all these multi-billion-dollar tech labs to get 300,000 developers on board?
Well, the secret sauce here is that OpenClaw is a model-agnostic application layer.
Model-agnostic.
Exactly. Over the past few years, developers and small businesses have grown incredibly frustrated by ecosystem lock-in.
Oh, for sure. It's a huge pain point.
If you build your entire company's workflow around one specific proprietary AI model, and then that company suddenly doubles their prices,
Or the servers go down.
right, or the servers crash, you are completely trapped. You have zero leverage.
So this shifts the power dynamic completely. By removing that lock-in, it turns the developers into the buyers who actually have leverage, rather than just being captive subscribers.
Precisely. Because OpenClaw runs locally on your machine, it acts as an impartial middleman. You can swap out the brain behind the agent seamlessly.
Just on the fly.
Literally on the fly. You can switch between different leading open source models whenever you want. And the primary reason you do this is to optimize your cost per token.
Okay, let's clarify that term for a second.
Yeah.
Because when we talk about a token in AI, we're basically talking about a chunk of a word, right?
Essentially, yes.
And you're paying micropennies for the computing power required to process every single token you send to the AI
Yeah.
and every token it sends back to you.
Right. And those micropennies add up to millions of dollars at scale. So if Model A is suddenly charging too much per token to write code, OpenClaw lets you instantly route all your coding tasks over to Model B.
Which might be running a massive discount that week.
Exactly. It essentially commoditizes the AI models themselves. It forces them to compete on price and performance every single second, while you, the user, just sit comfortably in your messaging app.
Wow. So it really is economic liberation for developers. They aren't locked in anymore. And I think that perfectly sets up the next major piece of this puzzle.
Yeah, the geographic adoption.
Right. Now that we understand why developers globally are flocking to this air traffic controller, we have to look at why China specifically is emerging as the absolute fastest growing market for OpenClaw.
Well, when you look at the Chinese market right now, you see this perfect storm of three distinct drivers converging.
Okay, what are they?
First, you have a massive, highly active developer community that inherently demands these frictionless, messaging-based AI workflows. Second, you have the domestic tech giants aggressively packaging these models.
Right.
But the third driver is entirely unique to the region, and that's the massive policy tailwinds.
Yes, the AI Plus initiative. The data in this report shows that local governments in cities like Shenzhen, Longgang, Wuxi, and Hefei aren't just putting out, PR statements encouraging AI development.
No, they're literally subsidizing the deployment of OpenClaw.
They are handing out cash.
Mm-hmm.
And their explicit goal for these subsidies is what I find so deeply fascinating. They are trying to enable the one-person company.
Which represents a profound shift in macroeconomic strategy.
It really does.
Yeah.
Let's walk through what a day in the life of this one-person company actually looks like. Because it's wild to think about. You wake up, you grab your phone, and you have different OpenClaw agents configured as your entire executive team.
Right.
You text your marketing agent to scrape trending topics and draft a localized ad campaign. You text your coding agent to debug the back end of your client's e-commerce site.
You text your research agent to pull competitive pricing data.
Exactly. You're a solo freelancer, but you are operating with the output of a 20-person agency. And because you're dynamically hunting for the lowest cost per token across all these open source models, your payroll for this massive digital workforce is practically zero.
And if we connect this to the broader economic picture, it completely flips the narrative of how artificial intelligence drives GDP.
How so?
Well, in the West, the dominant model has really been top-down enterprise software. A Fortune 500 company buys a massive, expensive AI suite just to make their 10,000 employees maybe 5% more efficient.
Right. It's a very incremental gain for a huge corporation.
But what is happening in China right now is a grassroots productivity revolution.
It's a massive bottom-up adoption trend. It's driven by individuals and small to medium businesses.
Exactly. And the rationale behind the government subsidies is just brilliant in its pragmatism. A city like Hefei realizes that traditional infrastructure spending, building a new bridge or a massive industrial park.
That takes years to yield any return on investment.
Right. But if you can hand a small cash subsidy to a citizen to set up these localized AI agents, and suddenly that one individual's economic output multiplies by 10 or 20 times.
You turbocharge the local economy from the foundation up almost overnight.
Exactly.
It's empowering the little guy on an industrial scale. But of course, where there's a grassroots revolution and skyrocketing productivity, the established tech empires are not just going to sit back and watch.
Oh, definitely not.
And that brings us to the massive corporate reaction. With this bottom-up adoption exploding, how are the established Chinese tech giants actually dealing with a totally free open-source tool that threatens to disintermediate them?
Well, they're initiating one of the most aggressive land grabs we've seen in recent tech history. They are racing to package OpenClaw into user-friendly deployment experiences. And we're really seeing two distinct battle lines drawn here regarding strategy.
Right. You have the mega caps taking what looks like a walled garden approach, and then the AI-native challengers focusing more on political mastery.
Yeah, let's look at the walled garden strategy first. You have Tencent taking a dual approach with Lighthouse, which is their cloud-based OpenClaw service, and WorkBuddy, which is a locally hosted app that comes preloaded with over 150 plugins.
Wow. And then you have ByteDance, the parent company of TikTok, rolling out ArtClaw, and Alibaba launching JVSClaw.
Right, and the defining characteristic of these mega-cap products is heavy integration. ByteDance hardwires ArtClaw directly into Faishu, which is their enterprise collaboration platform.
And Tencent builds theirs to connect seamlessly through WeChat and WeCom. And then on the other side, you've got the vertical mastery approach. Companies like Zipoo released AutoClaw, powered by their Pony Alpha 2 model.
Right, and they aren't trying to be everything to everyone. They are preloading the agents with 50-plus highly specific skills for niche industries like investment research or media content creation.
And Kimi launched KimiClaw, boasting over 5,000 specialized skills pulled from a repository called ClawHub.
But wait, if the core OpenClaw engine, the actual framework routing all these tasks, is free and open source, aren't Tencent and ByteDance just sort of slapping a shiny coat of corporate paint on it?
Yeah.
Where is their actual competitive moat if I can just go to GitHub and download this myself?
Well, you've hit on the exact vulnerability of their strategy.
Yeah.
The differentiation right now across these OpenClaw-based offerings is practically zero.
Wow.
They are essentially just wrappers around Peter Steinberger's code.
So what are they actually selling then? They are selling the removal of friction. Because setting up an open source framework locally, it still requires command line knowledge, managing API keys, and, troubleshooting dependencies.
Yeah, most people don't want to deal with.
Right, so these giants are providing one-click deployment. But the real play here isn't the software wrapper itself, it is ecosystem capture.
Ah, I see. The strategy isn't really to sell you the AI agent. The agent is just the lure.
Correct. They want to embed that free agent so deeply into the robust ecosystems they already control, like WeChat or DingTalk, that you never have a reason to leave their environment.
Right. They give you the free open source tool, but they make it so incredibly convenient to use within their own network that you end up generating all your data and spending all your computing tokens exclusively on their infrastructure.
Exactly. Which brings us to the final and frankly the most crucial element of this deep dive.
The investment reality check.
Yes. Because despite all this hype, all these GitHub stars and the frantic product launches from every major tech player in Asia, the actual financial analysis from Morgan Stanley offers a very sober assessment of who is actually going to make money here.
It really acts as a necessary bucket of cold water on the immediate hype cycle. The consensus in the report is a strong doubt that these OpenClaw wrapper products will see mass, mainstream consumer adoption at this current stage.
Which feels completely counterintuitive, right? When we just talked about a record-breaking 300,000 developers jumping on board.
It does. It feels like a contradiction.
It does. But a developer starting a project on GitHub is fundamentally different from a non-technical consumer relying on it to run their business securely.
That's a great point.
OpenClaw remains an experimental autonomous framework. There are massive unresolved barriers. Just think about the security implications alone.
Oh, man. Letting an autonomous AI agent loose on your local hard drive?
Exactly. Giving it permission to read your files and execute tasks across your messaging apps, it carries severe data privacy risks. One hallucination or a malicious prompt injection, and your agent could email your proprietary financial data to the wrong person.
Yeah, that's terrifying. So it is not yet a polished, bulletproof consumer application.
Not at all.
So if the OpenClaw wrappers aren't the immediate goldmine, where's the actual value accruing? Well, the analysis points directly to the underlying foundation models that actually power these agents.
Right.
They mention Alibaba's Quen model and Knowledge Atlas Technologies' Z.AI model. But there is one company that stands out way above everyone else in this ecosystem, and that is Minimax.
Yeah, Minimax is in an incredibly lucrative and just fascinating position right now.
The technical and market details on Minimax are staggering. First, Peter Steinberger, the creator of OpenClaw himself, personally recommended Minimax as the model to use with his framework.
Which is an organic developer endorsement you simply cannot buy. It's huge.
Mm-hmm.
And second, on a pure technical level, there's a benchmark called PinchBench, which specifically tests how well LLMs perform within the OpenClaw framework. Minimax ranks number 2 overall globally, trailing only behind Google's Gemini 3 Flash. And third, the market reaction is undeniable. If you look at the stock chart for Minimax, ticker 0100.HK, it shows a massive vertical spike starting in early 2026.
And that stock spike is driven by astronomical growth expectations. The financial modeling implies a 56 times price-to-sales ratio for Minimax in 2027.
Okay, let's ground that number for the listener, because a 5-6x multiple is massive. If you own a local coffee shop that brings in $100,000 a year in sales, a 56x multiple means someone is willing to buy your coffee shop for $5.6 million right now,
Right.
based entirely on the assumption that you are going to take over the entire city's caffeine supply next year. Investors are paying a massive premium for Minimax's future dominance. So how do we synthesize this whole ecosystem? I think it's best understood through the lens of early ride-sharing networks. OpenClaw is the Uber app interface on your phone. It's totally free to download, it connects you to what you need, and it fundamentally changes user behavior.
Okay.
But Minimax, Tencent, and Alibaba, they are the ones providing the actual cars and the gasoline.
The infrastructure.
Exactly. The elegant app interface is completely useless without the heavy machinery burning fuel in the background to actually get you to your destination. Every time that one-person company in Hefei texts their OpenClaw agent to write code, they are burning tokens, they're burning gas supplied by a foundation model like Minimax.
So OpenClaw creates the limitless demand for AI tasks, and then the foundation models supply the computational fuel to actually execute them.
Exactly. However, anyone looking at that 56x valuation really needs to understand the severe downside risks here. The biggest threat to these foundation model providers is intensified competition and brutal price wars.
Because the switching cost is virtually zero.
Exactly. The entire appeal of OpenClaw is that it makes it incredibly easy for users to swap out models to find the cheapest cost per token.
Right.
If you are using Minimax today and they raise their API prices by even a fraction of a cent tomorrow, you just update a single line of text in your settings and instantly route all your tasks to Alibaba's Quen model.
Wow. Loyalty completely vanishes.
Completely. The risk of model performance lagging behind peers, even for a single month, could result in a catastrophic loss of market share. You have to be the smartest model and the cheapest model simultaneously at all times.
It is a razor-edge market. Okay, well, we have covered a massive amount of ground today. Let's concisely recap the architecture of this shift. We started with OpenClaw, a tool that went from a quiet November 2025 experiment to a record-breaking 300,000-star phenomenon, acting as an API air traffic controller right inside your messaging apps.
Right.
We explored how China is aggressively capitalizing on this, with local governments funding AI-powered one-person companies to drive a bottom-up multiplier on individual GDP output. We analyzed how the massive tech giants like Tencent and ByteDance are scrambling to build wrappers around this free tech to lock users into their walled gardens. And finally, we looked at the underlying investment reality. The real value is flowing to the foundation models like Minimax that supply the computing fuel, even though they face the constant looming threat of brutal price wars in a market with literally zero switching costs.
It really is a brilliant case study of how a single piece of open source innovation can completely rewire an entire global computing landscape in a matter of months.
It's moving incredibly fast.
It is. And that actually brings me to a final thought I'd really like to leave you with.
Oh, let's hear it.
If model-agnostic frameworks like OpenClaw truly become the standard way we interface with artificial intelligence, if our primary interaction just becomes sending generic text to an invisible assistant routing tasks in the background, do the brands of the underlying large language models eventually become completely meaningless to us? Think about it. We switch models instantly behind the scenes purely to get the cheapest compute price. And as that happens, AI might stop being a branded premium product we consciously choose, like, agonizing over buying an Apple versus an Android, and simply become an anonymous, invisible utility.
Just like electricity.
Exactly, just like the electricity powering your home.
Yeah.
You don't care what specific power plant generated the electricity as long as the lights turn on when you flip the switch. Will we soon feel the exact same indifference about the artificial intelligence generating our ideas?
Now that is something to seriously chew on. A completely invisible, commoditized intelligence running our daily lives. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.